Welcome to today's webinar entitled Preventive and Deferred Maintenance Reality Check. How accurate is your equipment inventory? David, take it away.
Thank you so much, Billy, and thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day to join us today. We're going to talk about a really big topic that's going on right now, and that's with the current challenges with asset inventories. I know so many orgs are really looking at FCAs, facilities condition assessments, within their organization. And we're going to talk about some of the impacts of that, and then how other factors are really coming into play when it comes to looking at those FCA requirements too. That includes your asset inventory, the institutional knowledge within your facilities team, the impact on retirements in your facilities, and also labor shortages and how all of this really comes into play when you're looking at tracking inventories of your equipment. So let's start right here. It's how accurate is your equipment database? Who's updating that information? You know, let's face it, you have equipment all over the place. This is a roof that I was just at. Okay, this is down in Florida. All right, how many pieces of equipment are on that roof? Right? This is just the roof. This is just one part of this roof. But again, all this information about this equipment is in a database someplace, or isn't. Okay, a lot of times what I see is a mix of old equipment, mix of new equipment, and every time that something is swapped out, it's always a big question mark whether or not it was updated in that database. So we're going to look at some of the challenges with that as well. But 10 to 30% of asset database are inaccurate. I hear this all the time. It's because equipment was replaced. How many pieces of equipment in the field at your sites are decommissioned? And maybe some of them moved during a project, or you simply just replaced equipment, all right? Equipment all over the place. The challenges with that is when things change in your database, you're operating blind, all right? If it hasn't changed in your database, I'm sorry, then you are literally operating blind, right? If 10 to 30% of your equipment in your database is wrong, how are you supposed to budget? How are you supposed to work on your master plan when you don't even know what equipment's really in the field? I've talked to a lot of organizations that are outsourcing part of that to third-party groups, and some of those third-party groups, they won't even get on a ladder. So if you don't get on a ladder, then how do you know what's on the roof? Or even bigger is when you're walking down a hallway and you've got fan coil units that are up in the ceiling grid, and you don't know what that piece of equipment is. So they go back to look at a plan, and the challenge is the plan doesn't reflect that you swapped that unit out 6 months ago. Again, asset inventory, if it's inaccurate, how can you plan for that long-term stuff? But again, this is where it starts, is if my work order system or asset inventory system is incomplete, again, how do I plan for the stuff that's long-term down the road? Or how do I budget for things that could happen down the road as part of my master plan? When all of these fields are inaccurate or they're missing, this is what you want: a complete list, field verified, of what's really in the field. But that's a snapshot in time. Okay, so even if you got all of this done, this is a process change. Your process should be, if someone goes up on a roof and they swap out an exhaust fan, the next words out of your mouth should be, did you update it in the system? If the answer is no, you make them climb back up the ladder, pop the roof hatch, go update it in your system. Okay, I guarantee you're only gonna have to do that a couple of times to ask Bob or Ben or John or whoever on your team to climb up that ladder a couple of times because they didn't update it in the field. But there's a bigger underlying issue here too. Can they update it on the roof? Meaning, can they pull their phone out of their pocket? Can they grab their iPad and update it live on the roof? Because if they're writing it down in a notepad that's tucked in their pocket, I guarantee you it's not going to get put into the system. Because by the time they climb down that ladder, their radio's going off and they're going on to the next thing to fix. So they're never going to remember all the details that they will have right when they're standing in front of the piece of equipment. So again, process change. But the FCAs, again, it's part of your asset inventory. You're looking at structural current conditions. You're looking at utility mapping. But again, it's all part of the master plan. But how can you have an accurate master plan, again, when you don't have accurate information in the beginning? Well, your buildings are constantly changing too. Think about all the renovations that have been happening over the years. Think about all the things that have happened last week. Okay, and are those documented in your current situation that you have today? So when things change, when you knock down walls, when you renovate a floor, equipment moves, new equipment comes in, but things are not reflected typically back in systems. And again, it's a time thing, but it also means every time you do a renovation, you get more of this. Okay, and again, this is just a visual here, but every one of those little tags that you see there represents a change to this building, right? Every change means stuff moved, right? But where's the most recent electrical drawings? So I either go dig through these rolls, roll them out on a table someplace, or I start looking for other things in digital format. But again, I'm digging. But again, it's time. So do you know where all of your equipment is located? Okay, or do you pick up the phone and call somebody? So you have equipment all over the place. You've got it on a roof, you got it in the mechanical rooms. How many little water heaters are tucked away in a custodial closet, or the mini splits that are sitting in the data room, or maybe they're in a new part of the building? I don't know, but this stuff's all over the place. I actually was on site, this a couple of weeks ago, I was on site in California, and there was a school district, and the new guy had just started, and he didn't know what all they had, but he assumed that they only had 20, 30 pieces of equipment up on a roof. Well, he didn't know that roof had been retrofitted about 10 years ago. Every unit, every single classroom, I should say, every classroom had a split system, so the condensers were on the roof. We came around the corner on our team. We were going outside on site to map all this equipment out. Came around the corner, looked down. We were up above, and we looked down on this high school. The first school we did was a high school. Came around the corner, and we counted over 400 units on the roof. Not 30 or 40 like he thought. 400 exhaust fans. Splits, so the condensers are on the roof. Compact units, I mean, they're all over the place on this roof. We were there for 2 days mapping out this stuff. But that means also, because there are splits, every classroom had one hanging from the ceiling too. Equipment's all over the place. But also, how often is your team going up and down ladders trying to fix stuff? Or they're popping a ceiling tile trying to find stuff? I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said, you know, I traced these lines. I had no way to document it, and I know I just traced these lines 6 months ago. And I said, well, why didn't you write it down? He goes, I don't have any place to write it down. And remember, even if he did, he'd write it on that little notepad that's tucked in his shirt pocket. Well, if that's tucked in his shirt pocket, no one else knows it's there. So how many times is your team climbing the ladder and redoing the same stuff that they did a week ago, a month ago, a year ago? The problem is that one person who does that is unable to share that with everybody on the team. So what about the new person who just started? They're blind. So what do? They start popping ceiling tiles or climbing up ladders and doing the exact same thing. It's a waste of time. But the other challenge is most organizations have a mix of old and new. And I've seen some just shredded equipment. Okay, equipment that's on its last legs. It was on its last legs 10 years ago, and it's still running. It's held together by duct tape. All right, everybody's got old equipment too. But the challenge is, who knows how to fix some of this stuff, or who knows the secret trick that you've used for the last 5 years to keep it running? All right, or who knows where you got parts for some equipment that you just can't find parts. Did you get it on eBay? I hear that all the time. I was talking to a guy the other day. He said, we can't get our new chiller for another 18 months. So we found a guy who's got a scrapyard of old chiller parts. We bought a complete old chiller for 20 grand just to get parts, right? And now it's in his parking lot behind a fence. And that's their parts, just their parts bucket. It's just a mess of garbage. But the challenge is they can't get the stuff to, again, it's held together by duct tape and baling wire. The other challenge is, again, your team is not stationary. They're not tied to a desk. So if their responsibility is to update something in your work order system or update something in your asset management system that you're using, and it requires them to go back to a desk and enter it, it's not going to happen. Right? It's not going to happen. These guys are running around like crazy. They're climbing up ladders or on lifts. They're up on, on a roof in all kinds of weather trying to fix stuff. And they are not tied to a desk. Your team is mobile. They're in the field. But every person on your team should be able to update stuff in the field. I want you to think about that. Can my team update stuff in the field? I fix something, I replace a belt, I replace filters. Can I update what I just did live? It's a process. But also it's the institutional knowledge of where stuff's located. It's, you see in that picture in the very top there where the ceiling tiles pop. Look at that little red dot there. And there's some Sharpie written on there, right? One guy knew where that unit was. One guy. Right? That guy is already retired. That photo is from about 6-7 months ago, and he's already gone. So again, documenting where that stuff is, where that 1 or 2 or 3 people know, is critical. Why doesn't the new person know where everything is? Remember I mentioned those hot water heaters. That's like in the bottom right-hand corner there. I've got one client of mine that's got over 400 of these over his property. It's a commercial space. And he's got huge numbers of these little offices that they rent out, but every one of them has one of these little water heaters, and they're usually above the bathroom. They're all over the place. But he calls those ticking time bombs. Well, how many ticking time bombs do you have? Because he said those rust out all the time. Or where's the isolation valves? Where's all my fire alarm panels? Where's the backflow? Where's all the stuff that I need to even shut stuff off in my building? Again, handful of folks, but know where that stuff is. But what about the new person? Okay, I started last week. Can I access? Do I know where this stuff is? Or do I have to call Bob or Betty or whoever on the team, because there's a handful of people who know where the stuff is? Why is that? Why is that? Why doesn't your new person have access to where all this stuff is the day they start? Think about that. Again, it's about process. But here's the problem with that. Most of the organizations have a guy named Carl or Bob or Betty or John or whatever. These are the people, it's 1 or 2 people that know where stuff is. Why is that? Everybody calls this person. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said, one of my lead HVAC guys and one of my lead plumbers were both on vacation, and we had a water incident happen, and we couldn't get a hold of the guy. I said, why couldn't you get a hold of the guy? He said, well, he's on vacation. I said, well, yeah, I get it. Most of those guys will answer their phone. He said, no, not him. He takes cruises. I said, what do you mean he takes cruises? He said he goes on a cruise ship because his cell phone doesn't work. It's funny, but not funny. But it's the truth. Your team shouldn't be on call 24/7, but in many cases they are. But why is that? Most of the time, it's because you're relying on one person to know where stuff is. Think about that. If you have to pick the phone up at midnight and call somebody, why is that? Why can't anybody on my team access where stuff is in my building? But the problem is too, that's the person who knows where all your mechanical equipment is. Think about that. They also know where every isolation valve is and what it serves. But I got news for you. It's impossible for this person to remember where everything is. If you've got multiple buildings, especially in schools, if you've got 50 buildings, you got 40 buildings, you got 100 buildings or more, and you're relying on 1 or 2 people to know where all those isolation valves are, is that possible? No. They're probably forgot where more of these things are than they remember. So again, if you're not able to document where this stuff is, we call those single points of failure. If you're relying on 1 or 2 people on your team to remember where everything is in your building, those are single points of failure. People leave, people retire, people take other jobs. So if you're relying on a person, that doesn't work. That's not sustainable. The other challenge is that these are the people, especially the legacy people who've been there for a long time, they know what changed in the building over time. They remember, oh, you know what, in 1985 or 1997 or 2001, you know, we changed that whole floor. But you know what, I think we changed it again a year or 2 before that. I can't remember exactly what year, yada, yada. You understand where I'm going here. You're relying on a person to remember where stuff is, or I go into the plan room and start digging. How much time is that taking? So what are you going to do when that person walks into your office, sits in the chair across from you and says, I'm tired, okay? My wife and I are leaving, and we're retired. We're both going to retire at the same time. We're going to go travel. What are you going to do? Right. I talked to a guy the other day, and he was telling me that he has an elevator operator that's been with him for a long time. It's hard to find people in skilled trades, but it's even harder trying to find an elevator guy. And he said, you know, the guy came into my office and he sat down and he said, listen, I'm going to give you a couple options. You knew I was going to be retiring. I'm going to give you a couple options. Option 1 is I'll stay for 6 months and train whoever you can get. Okay, and I'll stay for that whole 6 months and I'll train them. Or option B is I'm gonna retire. My wife and I already bought a place in Utah. I will come in for 2 weeks a month. I'll do it for a year, but you're paying me 40 hours a week for the entire time for that year. Okay, which option do you think he went with? He went with option B. You know why? He can't even find somebody to replace that guy in 6 months. Think about that. Even if you get the person who walks in there and you've got any kind of a succession plan at all, and they walk in there, what's your hiring time frame? So how much seat time are you going to get with the new person before this person walks out that door? Roughly 30% of facilities teams are planning to retire in the next 5 years. I want you to think of it this way. It's not just the number of people. Think about what percentage of your team's institutional knowledge is in those people's heads. I've heard 30%, 40% of the team is leaving, but that represents anywhere from 70 to 80% of the institutional knowledge for these buildings. Do that math in your head for your team. If you've got 5 people that are in that retirement window, what percentage of your institutional knowledge is in those folks' heads? Then look yourself in the mirror and really take a hard look in the mirror and say, what am I going to do to get that stuff out of that knowledge and capture that before they walk out that door? It's a challenge. But it's not just about the loss of that institutional knowledge. It's trying to find people. So I'm going to lose people to retirements, but trying to find people to replace those people, it creates this big knowledge gap in teams. But it's not just about the retiring people. It's also about the people who are leaving just to take another job. I was talking to a guy that said he lost his lead plumber literally a mile up the street to another organization, and that guy is making $8.50 more an hour than he can afford to pay. $8.50 more. He's in public sector. How do you compete with that? So now he's running, his team is right now running about 30% down in FTEs, 30%. doing more with less. So again, everybody's in this boat trying to find people, but what this means is when those people who know where everything is in your building leave, it creates this giant hole that in knowledge. And that photo in the bottom right hand corner there is an actual photo from somebody I had a call with, right? That happened in 45 minutes because the one guy on the team who knew where the isolation valves were was gone. One guy, single point of failure. So think about the last instance that you had in your sites. Think about the last thing that you had that was big that happened that it took you a long time to be able to respond. Maybe it happened in the middle of the night. Maybe it happened on Saturday, right? Why can't the security guard? Why can't he know where the shutoff is? Or why can't you text something to a first responder who's standing in the doorway of your building? You need to be able to respond. It's about time. Okay, we talked about time on other stuff in a little while ago with how much time your team's trying to go find stuff. Well, now something's gone sideways, and now you got to respond now. All right, what do you do when something's going sideways in the building? Could be water, could be gas, could be anything. How long is it taking your team to respond? Think about that. But it's not just about the institutional knowledge loss. Let's get back to the equipment here. And now let's talk about how we're maintaining that equipment. Because a lot of orgs are short-staffed, because orgs are struggling trying to find people, what traditionally would be in the category of, in many cases, the category of preventative maintenance is now getting shoved into deferred. And it's not on purpose. It's they don't have the people or the time to do normal maintenance on the machine. So what happens is they're running it till it dies. They're running it to fail. So let's get back to the FCA connection there too. How can you budget for equipment that you don't know? One, you don't know what equipment you've got in the field. Now you also, because you're running to fail, don't know when it's going to fail. You see that snowball here? It just creates this perfect storm. And the culmination of all these different things lead up to, how do you plan? How do you plan? How do you budget for stuff that's going to happen to your building, to your equipment moving forward when it's this perfect snowball storm of stuff? It's just a challenge here. So how do you bridge the gap between that old and the new? Not just the old knowledge and the new people coming in, but the old way of doing things. Let's take a look at that. So a lot of it starts here. I go into offices, these are pictures I took. You go into offices and they've got a mix of all this type of stuff here. I see this all the time. I was talking to a guy the other day and he took me into his plan room and he goes, oh no, this is just the first plan room. I said, what do you mean the first plan room? We went through another doorway. There was another plan room. Went through another doorway. There was another plan room. He had 3, just like this. And this was a school. 3 plan rooms full of stuff. There were closeout. There were boxes all over the place. These pictures I'm showing here are clean compared to what I saw. I see it all the time though. Each one of those cubbies right there represents a school. Each one of these cubbies here represents a building. Well, some of them, there's 3 cubbies for a building. Again, it's a mess. But I'm the new guy or gal on the team, and I just started. Where do I go to find electrical drawings? Do I go in there? Or do I call John, the lead electrician who's been with me for 30 years, who's about ready to retire, and he's got an old roll of drawings that he keeps behind his desk? Single points of failure, folks, remember. But then there's this too. So now I've got a combination of this and this. All the old buildings, all the old drawings from the original drawings may be in paper, but now I've got a mix of this stuff where I get a bunch of thumb drives, or I get a hard drive, or I get a link to download a bunch of files. They're not labeled right. I don't even have the building. I don't have the floor. So what do I do to find drawings in this? I start opening up PDFs. Nope, that's not it. Click on this one. Nope, that's not it. That's not even the right part of the building. Let me go over here, click on this other folder. Oh, that folder's empty. Why is the folder empty? Bob accidentally deleted it. Think about that. A lot of hands in there on a share drive trying to find stuff. Well, how are you supposed to find stuff when you don't even, it's not even organized by what building, let alone what part of the building? It's no different than this. I start opening up roles, just like I start opening up these files, and start looking for stuff. And what does that mean to you and your team? Time. Design construction too, same thing. Start digging, I'm trying to find what drawings touch the southeast corner, the third floor. I start digging. Or I call Bob, because Bob was there, but Bob forgot the other 3 renovations that we did in-house that I don't even have drawings for. Again, it's a mix mosh of stuff. But even if you get rid of all the paper and you scan it all in and you dump it on a share drive someplace, if I can't find stuff, to do my job, I can't find electrical, I can't find my MEP that's for the lab that we've got in that particular building at the school. I'm digging, I'm wasting time, and I'm trying, and then what happens is they finally just give up and they just start popping ceiling tiles and trying to figure stuff out. Again, it's all a waste of time. The scanning stuff doesn't work if you don't have a way and a process for moving forward how to actively access that information. But you got to start documenting where your stuff is today, right? And I cannot stress this enough. Every day that you wait is one day closer to Bob leaving, Betty leaving. They're either going to retire, they're going to take another job, or they're going to move to another department even. The people move around. You have to start documenting where your stuff is and cross-training like crazy. Everybody on your team should be a generalist. Everybody should know a little bit about a lot, all right? But imagine having all your equipment locations and all your equipment details on your phone, okay? Every one of your team, every person on your team, all of them have a smartphone today. All right, I was actually at a conference up in Baltimore earlier, and I had about 150 people in my session. I asked everybody, raise your hand if you've got a smartphone. Every person raise their hand. I said, keep your hand in the air if you can access all your drawings, all your equipment locations, all your shut-off locations on your phone. Every person put their hand down. And I looked at them all and I said, pardon me, why the hell not? It's 2023, folks. It's 2023, all right? As my daughter, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she said, Dad, that sounds like something back in the 1900s. Of course, I grabbed my head, but she's right. You have the ability to do this stuff today. There's technologies out there to do this stuff. So why aren't you doing it? All right, think about that. Process changes, accessing stuff on my phone. I access menus in a restaurant from my phone every week. I access stuff on my phone to book a flight or order food or check the times on movies. I'm on my phone all the time. So is your team. So using the old excuse that, oh, my team's not tech savvy is garbage. That's garbage. They're all on their phone. They may be using Facebook, Twitter, whatever. They're on their phone all the time. Give them some credit. But here's what some schools have done, and this, I'm going to show you an example here of how they're accessing drawings. So this is University of Washington here, but again, click on a building. You got a building list. All the buildings are listed here. Drill down to one building. Those top 2 buttons there are the drawings for this building. Now you go into all the drawings are now organized by floor. Think about that. All the drawings for my building, the entire historical record of this building is now organized by floor. Can you do that today? We'll drill down even more. Here's the drawings that just touched this floor. This is the first floor. There's only a handful of drawing sets. I may have 500 plan sets or 100 plan sets that are for all the renovations I've done on a building. Well, I just narrowed it down to 4 or 5 or 6 drawing sets from all those. I don't have to sort through all those drawings that are in paper. I don't have to dig through a share drive and try and figure it out. They're all right here. And you can access them on your phone, on your tablet, on your desktop. wherever you are, at home. Let's look at equipment. Same thing, all organized by building. Click a building, all right? Drill down. You actually have a button that says equipment maps. I'm not having to dig. Equipment maps. Click on it. Oh, they're organized by floor? Really? Here's all the different types of equipment. You can see here's air compressors. You got an air dryer in here. You've got some fan coils in here. You got some air handlers in here. But I want to see one piece of equipment. Well, here it is. And here's the details about that piece of equipment. The name, make, model, serial number. You can even put when it was installed. You can put when the warranty expires. And there's photos of the actual unit. Now imagine this, all right? Say this is an older piece of equipment. You want to have Bob, who's about ready to retire, he knows the secret squirrel way to fix this thing because he's fixed it 100 times, you know, and there's a trip switch on the back side of that thing, and he uses a coat hanger to reach it. Record a video of him doing that. Save it. Now every person on the team can see that. Think about that. If you have to swap out things on this thing, or maybe the spec says you got to use this belt, but you know it actually runs better if you use this other belt, or we can't get this, or we can't get that part, or whatever. All that's documented per piece of equipment, and now it's saved with the equipment record, and the person who started last week can see all of that. Think about that. The brand new person who started last week can see not only all the information about the equipment, they can even hear a video of Bob saying what they do to fix that piece of equipment. Can you do that today? Because technologies are available, you can do this. It's not hard, folks. Also, the thing with shutoffs here, mapping out shutoff locations, isolation valves. So not just the stuff in the building, the stuff out of the building as well. But drill down here. Again, click on a building. An actual button that says shutoffs. Think about that. Shutoffs. Ironic, huh? I want to see a shutoff. Click a button that says shutoffs. Now I want to see the shutoffs on a floor. Here's all the shutoffs. Gas, water, power, electrical panels, switch gears, everything associated with a building, inside and out. Isolation valves on a floor, inside and out. And I can drill down. I want to see water. Here you go. I've got everything from, I've got clients will map out steam. I've got clients who will map out every water isolation valve for every toilet, every sink, everything. You can do that today. Think about that. How much time would that save you and your team? How much money would that save you when that flood happens or that pipe bursts inside your wall? Access to information. Also access to your emergency information. Again, by building, by floor. Click on all my emergency equipment. And you can see here's all the emergency equipment in this building by type. Defibrillators, where's all my fire extinguishers? How many times you're checking all your fire extinguishers report? Where are they? I'm going to send the new guy or gal out to go look at check all the fire extinguishers. Really? So you're just going to have them wander aimlessly around the building? Or did you write it on a plan and, oh, we forgot to mark it on the plan that half of them moved and we swapped them out? Really? So how much time is that taking? Exit signs, pull stations, all the strobes, everything in the building, all your emergency lights. But I want to see just the fire extinguishers. Here they are. Drill down, and there's the actual extinguisher, right? You can even put in all the other information like what's the extinguisher number, all of it in one spot. Here's actually called just Sequoia's, and this is interesting because he's using it outside the box ways to even map out even IT equipment or finishes. Now imagine this. Your IT group needs to know where every router is, every one of your data closets. I want to know where everything for IT is related. Also, I want to know where every jack is in every room. Imagine having all that mapped out. And now IT can see just their stuff, or even custodial. Imagine your custodial team walks into a room, okay? There's a QR code up on the wall. They scan that QR code and it opens up a form that they can fill out, all electronic, on their phone, on their tablet. Fill that form out, right? And then hit submit after they've entered all their notes and it gets emailed to somebody. All these different ways that you can use systems and technology today to capture legacy knowledge, but also the day-to-day knowledge. I've got some of my clients right now are using it for rounding in hospitals, inspections of certain different types of things, like your generators. All the different stuff you can map out, but then also capturing the legacy knowledge of the stuff between the buildings. So if you've got construction projects going on, think of it this way. Where's all your sewer cleanouts? Where's all your pull boxes? Where's all of your gas lines? Where do they run? So mapping all that stuff out, and this looks like a blob of different colors here, but you can turn these pins on and off and see just specific things that you want to see, like type. And again, all the stuff between the buildings. But if I want to see electrical pull boxes, I can turn all the other pins off and just see pull boxes and have photos. I can even put what direction does it go, whatever, all the sewer cleanouts, all of that stuff can be in here, documented as you find stuff. So if I'm walking into a building or I'm walking between buildings and I see something that's, hey, wait a minute, I didn't even know that was there. Let me pull my phone out of my pocket, click an app, open it up. Oh, that's not there. Let me take a picture of it, hit save, and now every person on the team sees what I just found. All of them, live, real time. You can do that today. You can do that with technologies that are available today. But again, it's a process thing also. So think about some of the systems that you might have today. Can they do some of this stuff? And I'm not saying they can or can't. I don't know. I don't know what you have. But at the end of the day, a lot of the legacy systems that folks have, just they weren't built like that. And that's okay. But that means you can look at systems to fill gaps too. And we'll talk about that. So let's take a look at what that means again from drawings and also accessing equipment and shutoffs. So imagine you pull your phone out of your pocket, and this is an example of an iPad, tap an app, all right, drill down into a building here. Let's see this building here, and I want to see the drawings. Literally tap on it, and you see here's a handful of drawings that touch this part of the building. This one's the most recent. Let me click on that. There's the drawing set, all of them. And you can flip between the drawing set that way quickly. Can you do that now? Same thing with equipment. Tap on an app, pull my phone out of my pocket, I'm on a roof, or I'm in a part of a building, or in this case, walk up to a unit, there's a QR code, scan the QR code, here's all the information for that unit, the manual, specs. I can even have parts. I can even have a link to my Grainger account. All from my phone live when I'm standing in front of that unit. Same thing with shutoffs. Got something going sideways in the building, don't know where the main is, don't know where anything is in the building. Let me click on it here. I'm at home. All right, click on shutoffs. Here's a water shutoff right there. Let me tap on it just to make sure that that's the right one. I think that's outside. Yep, there's a water. Okay. I can take a picture of this. I can send this to somebody who's standing in the doorway when I just rolled out of bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. All right. I can not only circle it, send it, mark up right in an application and text it to somebody who's standing in the doorway before I even put my pants on at 1 o'clock in the morning to get my car to go back to the office. That water, if something's going sideways in your building, isn't going to wait until you get there to stop. It's going to keep running until you get there, unless you can shut it off immediately. Every second that your water's running is gallons of water. Think about that. It's like a gas pump, right? The longer the water runs, the more money it's going to cost you. So think about how long or how much money it's going to cost you. That could be relocating students. That could be relocating staff. because I can't have anybody in this room because it's flooded, or these rooms are flooded, and now I've got to figure out where to put these people, and while I'm trying to fix the damage from that. So it's not just monetary, it's also about moving and losing access to those particular spaces. So you got to make that transition from the old to the new, but especially for the new people, new hires should have access to where stuff is day one. Day one. I start today, I should be able to know where every shutoff is in my building or in these buildings today. Can you do that now? Most of the training that I hear, and it can be 6 months to a year plus of job shadowing somebody, which means you're paying two people to do the same job for how long during that training process. Imagine speeding up that training process. So everybody has access to where all the stuff is. So what kind of time savings is that going to be? Because the majority of, or the vast majority of the training, what I hear is, it's just showing people where stuff is. Showing them how to fix stuff is part of that, of course. But it's also just showing them where stuff is, getting them familiar with the building. I hear this all the time. If you've been in one building, you've been in one building. Just because they've been in similar buildings doesn't mean they know this building or that building. Also, the more buildings you've got, it's impossible for these people to remember where stuff is. So how do you expect the new person to know where any of that stuff is? Give instant access to all your building information to everyone, not just the new people, not just the people who've been there for 5 years, every person on your team. And you can also give access to the people who are not traditional facilities, but they work with facilities, design construction, all right, IT. Think about it from the perspective of even space planning. They have access to all the drawings, really, current, as well as all the historical stuff that's ever happened in the building. Everybody should have access to that. New team members can now focus on the core competencies of why they were hired. You hired a plumber, you hired an HVAC tech, let them go do their job. Speed up that hiring process, or speed up that training process. But a lot of the technologies that are out there fill these gaps, and AI is a big one, okay? Machine learning, optical character recognition is another one. Being able to read old drawings, have software that reads old drawings and makes sense of it and organizes it in a way that your team can find it. QR codes. Everybody uses QR codes today. Everyone. I guarantee you every person on your team has used QR codes in the last month, 2 months, all of them. But software also has to be mobile optimized. Okay, these things that we have in our pockets called a phone, they're smartphones. It's a computer in their pocket. But most importantly here, take custody of your building information. This stuff should not be in somebody's head. It shouldn't be on a hard drive someplace or a shared drive someplace. Take custody of your building information. And I'm gonna tell you a real quick story that I heard just this morning. And this was a school in Southern California. HVAC, I was talking to the director, but the HVAC, his main HVAC tech, been there for 15 years, stored everything on an external hard drive, everything. Hard drive failed yesterday. Lost everything. Nothing can be recovered. Gone. All his Excel spreadsheets that he did, all his historical documents that he had from vendors, all that stuff was gone. Okay? And if you're looking yourself in the mirror right now and thinking, well, we would never do that. A guy would never be able to keep stuff on an external hard drive. Well, great. They just kept it on your shared drive. Now you just had a cyber attack. Now what? That same school was hit by a cyber attack a year and a half ago. Think about it. Lost all their drawings. All that stuff is in one spot, and it's not redundantly backed up in a cloud where everybody can access it anywhere they are. Think about that. Single points of failure. But key takeaways here I want you to really focus in on are proactively start capturing that institutional knowledge before it walks out that door. Every day you wait is one day closer to that person's last day who knows where everything is. What are you waiting for? Scan and digitize all your stuff. Get rid of that paper, okay? I got news for you. A lot of the new folks that you've got on your team that are coming in, if they walk in and you've got 3 plan rooms like that other guy, they just literally shake their head. They can't get their head around that you don't have everything digital. The younger folks that are coming into the trades right now were born with a smartphone in their hand, okay? If you can't access the information on their phone, they're going to look at you like you're, again, back in the 1900s. Come on. There are better ways. Store all your information in one spot, all of it. As-bills, warranties, shut-offs, all your equipment locations, all your emergency locations, but all your important, key, critical building information stored in one spot that everybody on your team can access. It has to be user-friendly. Repeat this. If nothing else, repeat this. If it's not easy, your team will not use it. So when you're looking at things, you're looking at systems, if your gripe on your team is it's a pain in the butt to use that system over there, so the harder it is for them to use, the less likely they're going to use it. Make sure the systems you're using are easy and they can access it in the field, mobile, okay? Your team is wasting a lot of time right now. I guarantee you, if you really keep track of how many times your team's going up on a roof, climbing down the ladder, going back to a plan room, going on a computer, trying to dig and look for stuff, then they go back in the field, oh, crumb, I got the wrong unit, I'm gonna go back into the plan room, whatever. It's not just about the flipping through plans or flipping through a binder or flipping through a manual someplace. It's the time that they're wasting going back and forth all day long. All of your information should be available mobile, all of it. You're not tied to a desk either. You're going from meeting to meeting. You're at home today. You're 2 o'clock in the morning. Something goes sideways in the building. The information should be where you are. You should be able to access it from wherever you are. Can you do that today? So again, what are you waiting for? You gotta start now. You need to really focus in on what can I do to make these changes to help my team be more efficient, to help my team just make their work balance with their happiness even better. The path forward is you got to take custody of your information. A combination of the snowball that I talked about earlier, of people leaving for retirements, the talent shortage that's out there. It's a perfect storm, but the successful businesses will be the ones that plan strategically and employ the technology that will help your team long term.